Looks like, at least at the first page, looks like the winner is, yeah, I can't spend too much time counting these things. Looks like the winner is going to be Merlin Wendelboe. So we'll start with that. And Ed, he writes, something liberals don't seem to understand is just how bad life can get in a communist country. Given your wife's unique insights, can you please describe the lack of freedom and daily terror of life in the Soviet Union and what might be life in the United States be like if Bernie Sanders ever gets elected? Well, first of all, in my discussions about this with Natasha, she was quite young when the Soviet Union fell, and the first thing I'll say off the bat is I never got from her a sense of terror, ever. I never got from Natasha the sense that she was afraid of the state. I'm afraid of that state because I know what happened, and she, she knows the basics of it, and it's very depressing to her in the way that many things she points out about America, like why are we doing this, why are we destroying this beautiful thing, makes me depressed. But I've never heard her. I've never heard her say I was, afraid that the secret police were going to come and get me. I'll tell you what she does say though, and this is what I also heard from the first people that I met who came from a communist country, which was a writer from Bulgaria back when I was 16, had a big influence on me, a guy named Vasko Janchev, poet, and a writer who escaped from Bulgaria. And he tells a similar tale. He said it wasn't you knew that you could be taken away, but that wasn't really the daily concern. He said, and Natasha, I think, has basically agreed, that the worst thing about life in that kind of socialism is just how much of your time is wasted, and how silly it all is. She would talk about some of these activities. Some things sometimes, like they would have voluntary Saturdays where once a month everybody in the country voluntarily gives an extra Saturday's worth of work to help out for this workers' paradise. And she hated it, and everybody around her hated it. And we're talking about end stage communism now. We're talking about the very last years of Brezhnev, and then the rapid fire secession of for God's sake, Chernenko, and before that Andropov. So Brezhnev, Andropov, Chernenko, Gorbachev. She saw the end of the Brezhnev stuff, which was the society was just completely fossilized. Nothing had changed since Stalin's death. Although there are a lot fewer executions after Stalin's death, so there's some good news to that. And plus, Beria was executed, and that's always something to cheer about. But she talks about the boredom of it, and this is my favorite part. She talks about the ridiculousness of it, how everybody knew how stupid this was. The idea of walking around, walking down the streets with a big smile on your face and a picture of Voroshilov or whatever the new Voroshilovs and Malenkovs are. The idea of holding up these posters of these mummies as if it mattered to you it was a chore. It was like any other chore, It's like going to church if you're young and you're not religious. It's like, can we get on with this so we can go out and have fun? It amuses her to hear me when I have to wait in a line in America. I'll say, man, there's a crazy long line at this supermarket. It's going to take us 7-8 minutes to get to the cashier. This is a society where 7 or 8 hours was routine. And this is the thing my friend Vasco said too, just the sense that nobody cares about what happens to you. You just don't matter. As I've said many times, the thing that is most enjoyable for me to watch is that she is a little less astonished than she was when she got here 2 years ago, but still, every now and then, she'll just look at me and shake her head. She's astonished at how friendly people are in this country, how friendly people are in supermarkets. And I don't mean just the people who are behind the cashier, behind the counter, working as cashiers. They're friendly everywhere. But the fact that we would just be standing in line and somebody behind us in line would just turn to her and say, "That's a beautiful dress you're wearing." She's just floored by this. Nobody does this in Russia. They think you're mentally deranged if if you are friendly like that. There's something wrong with you. You know, you're mentally ill. So that's something to be really proud of. The taxes that don't get us anything, especially in California. And by the way, her view of America is deeply colored by the fact that she lives in Los Angeles. We have been to places like, we've been to Minneapolis, and we've been to Illinois, and we've been around the country. In fact, just going to Orange County or Ventura County, it's suddenly so much cleaner and the roads are paved. I said, "This is actually the country, honey. We just happen to have picked you up at a place where we're basically trying to bring in the third world as fast as we can." So that's the first part of it, Merlin. I never got the sense of them being scared. I'll tell you one other thing, though, and this is more serious than being bored, and this is still there. I remember when I first met her, and I was trying to get something to her in Russia, and the kind of thing is just be a very, very, very simple FedEx, just simple, and it took 10 days or something. And I would say, "Well, what happened to it?" And she would say, "Well, it's just not here. It's just gone." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Bill, this is Russia. It's Russia." And there's kind of a shrugging of the shoulders there. So balanced against the fact that I hear constantly about how modern Moscow is, how clean it is, how beautiful it is, and it is. And to our disgrace, I mean, you look at that, it shows you what happens when you do have people actually being paid to do the jobs that they're supposed to do. But the one thing besides the friendliness of the people here, the one thing that I've noticed about her talking about Russia is that kind of fatalistic sense of powerlessness, and especially with regard to the law. In other words, a lot of people have dash cams in Russia. And one of the reasons so many people have dash cams in Russia, according to my wife, is that it's certainly not uncommon. In fact, it may be pretty much business as usual for there to be a fender bender accident of some kind. The police arrive. The police rapidly determine which one of these people has the most money. That person pays the bribe, or a bigger bribe, and at that point, the police will testify in behalf of that person. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. That's just the way it is. That's just life. There are some ownership issues that some of her family had to deal with for about a year that were not just frustrating to me, they were almost incomprehensible to me. Who owns this? Well, my mom does, but this other guy has a claim. Well, if he's got a claim, take it to court. Well, if they go to court, then the guy with the most money is going to win that decision. He's just going to buy the decision. Can't take it to court. That is someplace that we haven't gotten to yet, and why I'm sitting in this chair is to make sure we don't get to that point. So despite the fact that corruption in America has grown enormously, especially in the last 10 years, and the weaponization of the government and so on, we still do have property rights here, and we still do have a fundamental belief in the law, that the law, that if truth is on your side, you will prevail. We believe that in America because I think it's kind of true. Strangely enough, we were talking last night about Russia and the character. I just finished a very influential book that was sent to me. I've forgotten the name, forgive me, but by one of our Stratosphere Lounge fans here. One of two books, and this one was called The Revenge of Geography by Robert Kaplan. And he was talking about how it's absolutely true that individuals do make history, but your geography, your position in the world, is the giant tide that carries all of these boats back and forth in specific directions. And he basically went all around the world and talked about the geopolitical significance of these countries based on their history, and what can we expect in the future based on the past. I'm a firm believer in this kind of thing. And he was talking about Russia, and he was mentioning that I don't want to mangle this statistic because I'm sure he got it right. I may not be getting it right, but as I recall, if you look at the northern border of the United States, I think it's the 49th parallel that is essentially the border with Canada. And needless to say, with the exception of Alaska, all of the United States of America is south of the 49th parallel. But if you carry the 49th parallel around to Russia, you find that almost all of Russia is north of the 49th parallel, which means that southern Canada is as hospitable as Russia gets. And when you think about the openness and the size and things that Kaplan pointed out, how short the growing season is, how quickly people have to harvest things, how little time there is to do the things that need to get done, followed by 9 months of not being able to do anything. Well, when you get all that stuff together, it selects for harshness and toughness. They're survivors, and they're proud of being survivors. And they're very, very deep people, and they're very large-souled people, but it's buried very, very deep. And Americans have had the blessings of geography, God, and all the rest, and we're friendly because we can afford to be friendly. We're protected by 2 oceans on one side and Canada on the north. And Kaplan points out that the one thing we should have been doing rather than going into Iraq, Afghanistan, is we should have been dealing with Mexico and making Mexico a place that's more stable. I don't know exactly how we would do that, but nevertheless, it's something to be thinking about. I hope that does it. So moving on.